Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I'm not Elizabeth from Amazon, but I'm going to jump in. And Saar, I want to let you know I've known Fiona a long time, and the fact that we're both Irish, I don't want you to think there's any 2 to 1, because I learned a long time ago in the ag tech game to appreciate the I companies, Ireland, Italy, and Israel. So. We'll take a very ecumenical view of all this, but delighted to see both of you, and I'm thankful I've spent some time with you in the past, since we're jumping right in. So why don't we get started? And great to see both of you. Fiona, I'm going to put you right on the spot since Denise gave you some kudos. Talk a little bit about Apis, what you're doing, and I still remember being very, very intrigued by how you got into all of this, and why you started your ApisProtect. So welcome and have at it.
Great. Thanks so much, Dennis, and thanks, Denise, as well. Yeah, it was a great honor to win the award. So it's great to hear that I was the first one on board. Thanks again, Dennis. So my name is Dr. Fiona Edwards-Murphy, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of ApisProtect. And as Dennis mentioned, I'm Irish. I grew up here and lived here all my life. But obviously I've spent a good bit of time at this point over and back to the US, both before and after I started ApisProtect. So what we do is we have a sensor technology, one of which I've got in my hands here, that is able to help beekeepers reduce losses and increase productivity in their hives. And my own background is in engineering, so it doesn't seem like bees and farming is where I would end up. So it's actually electronic engineering is my area of expertise. But I do come from a rural background, I guess a farming background. I grew up in a part of Ireland called North Cork, where we have an awful lot of dairy farming, grass-based dairy farming in particular. So there's an awful lot of beekeepers there taking advantage of the kind of lush natural landscape that facilitates that kind of farming. And I actually grew up just down the road from a really interesting town called Ballyvourney, which is actually the town or the home place of the patron saint of beekeeping. So I guess it's kind of destined for us to end up working with bees. So I fell in love with an area of engineering called the Internet of Things. So all about sensors, taking sensors into the real world and using them to achieve useful things. And I ended up combining both my background and my experience and what I learned about growing up together with the skills I learned at university. Ended up doing a PhD, started in 2013 on applications of wireless sensor networks for honeybee monitoring. And that grew into ApisProtect, which I co-founded in 2017. And we've been working with beekeepers all over the world since. So we've worked with beekeepers in the US, here in Ireland, the UK, and also in South Africa, which is particularly interesting. So I guess that's a little bit of a background on me and ApisProtect.
Good. Well, that get us started. Let me turn it over to you, Saar, and talk a little bit about what you're doing at BeeWise, how you got involved in it, and bring us up to date on the state of BeeWise today, and then we'll jump in and we'll visit with each other a bit.
Thank you, Dennis, and hi everybody. Hi, Fiona. I'm Saar from BeeWise. I'm not Irish. I'll just say that. But I do understand you guys when you speak, so we're on good terms.
Oh, there you go. Okay, touche.
Yeah. I'm a software engineer in training. Like Fiona, I come from an engineering background in software. And then at some point in my career, I was lucky enough to meet an amazing gentleman by the name of Elia. And Elia is a beekeeper, and he's been doing beekeeping, at a commercial scale for years. And at some point, he kind of thought to himself, it's unfathomable that we're doing beekeeping in 2017 just the same way we did it in 1817 or 1850. And so, we somehow met each other and we started working on BeeWise. And in 2018, we founded the company with a mission similar to Fiona's, to save the bees at scale. And our kind of, the path we took is to try and use any technology available today on the shelf to apply it towards the benefit of saving the bees beyond all the things that were talked about in this conference about, biodiversity and so on, we think, not enough technology is being utilized for the benefit of the bees and for the benefit of the beekeepers and the growers.
What I'm kind of both intrigued by is your comment that it's been done the same way for over 100 years. What have each of you experienced in terms of adoption, willingness to change, to try new things? What, for lack of a better phrase, what are the barriers to entry relative to your technology and what you're trying to do, Fiona?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely very similar experience to what Sarah is talking about there. Beekeeping is just about, I mean, I know in general, agriculture, like ag tech is a very new concept, and technology adoption is slower in agriculture than it is in, I guess, other industries and other forms of manufacturing. But yeah, beekeeping is, I think, certainly on an extreme end of that. I mean, I was speaking to a beekeeper a couple of months ago, and he told me, the only major technological innovation in beekeeping was the invention of the forklift. That's it. So you could pick up 2 beehives at once instead of one.
Okay.
That's it. And we've seen that across the industry. There are some software solutions and stuff like that coming on board, but the majority of beekeepers that we work with maybe use the WhatsApp to organize between the groups of laborers. That's maybe about as technologically adept as they get. They're still tracking everything that's going on in their beehives with a notebook, because when you've got beekeeping gloves on, it gets really hard to use a phone, even a mobile phone or a tablet or anything like that. And they're like that, driving trucks in and out, and maybe writing it up on a whiteboard when they get back to the office. So just trying to organize beekeeping, trying to create efficiencies within your operation is very, very difficult. So it's certainly been, I guess, a challenge bringing technology to beekeepers. But certainly when they learn about it and when they get their hands on it and see the power that sensor technologies and more information about what's going on remotely can do for them, they get incredibly excited. Like, it's always my favorite part when we're working with a beekeeper, when they're sitting down for the first time, looking at a screen saying, oh, that's my beehive, that's 50 miles down the road, and it's telling me what's going on right now.
And I want to jump in before we go back over to Saar. One of the questions I have, and both of you approach this, and it's interesting. You have engineering backgrounds, and then you encounter this world, and you clearly see a pretty significant opportunity. So in your case, you're talking about sensors. Has it been an easier go relative to sensor technology in terms of, okay, if you are interested, this will at least work and it will pencil? Whereas, for instance, in my neck of the woods, sensors on the vegetable side have had a little more difficult time in terms of adaptation, because the block sizes are smaller, we're moving too fast, and so it's just practically difficult to do. Are there practical challenges from a sensor standpoint?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been the more challenging side, and I'm sure Sarah has lots to say on this as well. But on the engineering side, the actual straightforward parts of designing a product are actually the most difficult when it comes to designing a product for bees. Things like making sure the bees can't propolize, the devices can't cover them in wax, that they survive in this really extreme hot, extreme cold, high humidity environment. So just the like mechanical design and the industrial design of our device, and kind of the reality of beekeeping, which is eventually somebody's going to drive over your device with a forklift. It might not happen this week, it'll happen in a few weeks' time. So just making things rugged enough to survive the real world of beekeeping is a challenge.
So there can be some practical sample. And I see that we're joined by our good friend, Elizabeth Fastigi from Amazon. So I know I'm delighted to see you, because I was winging it. So if you're ready to jump in, I'll turn it over to you, or I'll let Saar buy you a little bit of time answering the question of what are the adoption issues, and then you can take over from there.
Well, I apologize for the technical challenges that delayed me. So hello, everyone. Thank you very much. And Dennis, I've been listening here. You're doing an awesome job.
Well, I know you can. I know you can upscale the rest of the interview with your taking it over. So let me turn it over to you, and And I'm pretty sure the two of you will be very, very comfortable with Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, it's yours.
Well, thank you. We actually had the opportunity to reconnect a little bit earlier this week. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Fastigi. I head up business development for the agriculture industry vertical here at AWS, and I'm really excited about what both Fiona and Saar are building, obviously, to address some really critical, systemic issues as it relates to sustainability in agriculture. So I would love to, I know that we had an opportunity a little bit earlier this week to really talk about each of your approaches to this challenge, right? And I was wondering if you could maybe each elaborate on that a little bit in terms of, what you're actually building and what your approach is, right? Fiona with a specific device that can retrofit existing beehives, and Saar with your approach around really modernizing the entire beehive from end to end, right? Really from soup to nuts. And obviously those are two really different approaches, but they're very complementary. So would just love to hear from each of you sort of why that chosen path and what you see as the particular, opportunity that you fill in the market.
Great. I don't know, does Sarah want to go first on this one? I've gone first both times so far.
All right. I'll be happy to. So in essence, we think times are dire. We believe that bees are, we're losing a lot of our bees, a lot of the colonies. And so when we set up with BeeWise, we decided that we're going to try, and instead of solving the externalities, preventing people from using pesticides or stopping climate change, we'll focus on internalities, and we'll try and equip the bees with a toolbox so that they can actually not only survive, but actually thrive. And so we took the old, 150-year-old wooden box, and we realized there's a lot of constraints with that platform, that technology, right? It's, first of all, it's 150 years old. And the things we wanted to do couldn't kind of work in that constraint, limitations with the box. And so we scrapped the box and we built a new box that actually contains 24 colonies, but allows us to solve a lot of the issues that bees are experiencing that are inherently impossible to solve with the 150-year-old wooden box. And so we literally went out and took any existing technology on the shelf and we applied it towards beekeeping. And this is an extreme solution. I mean, it completely changes the way that bees are kept. But in essence, what it does, it divides the manual labor, the repetitive, mundane manual labor in the field from the beekeeper's expertise. And so the beekeeper can remain in the office and apply their expertise remotely to their colonies. And by that, significantly lower the colony losses, significantly, even overwintering and so on, everything can happen in this box, increase the yields, kind of like in Fiona's solution, and at the same time, save the bees. So we found we're experiencing a less than 10% every 12 months, 10% losses, less than 10% with the same colonies. I mean, we don't have special bees or, bees on steroids. It's the same colonies that beekeepers have.
Great. So those are fantastic loss rates, Sarah. That's great. So yeah, we took, I suppose, the opposite approach, and definitely I really enjoy your solution. It's really interesting. So we took the opposite approach, which is how can we help as many beekeepers as we can as quickly as possible. So we went for designing our really basically as physically small and unobtrusive as possible technology that can be retrofitted into a commercial beekeeping operation. And the driving force behind that was, firstly, let's not make the beekeeper change what they do, as much as possible. So what we want them doing are the things that they know how to do, the skills that they have, the techniques that they have, but apply them in a more targeted way. So that means our technology can never get in the way of what a beekeeper does. So basically it gets retrofitted inside the roof of the beehive. When the beekeeper goes out to do their thing, do their feeding, do their treatments, all they do is take off the roof, throw it on the ground like they do as normal, and then our technology is gone out of the beehive. So our technology is designed to be cheap, robust, reliable, deployed in seconds. So we wanted it to be actually really, really really quick and easy to install this kind of technology in, 100 hive operation, 1,000 hive operation. And we're pretty happy that we've gotten there. We've got like that disposable batteries. So if the beehive gets crushed or the roof gets crushed, or if you have to disinfect it and bleach, it's not going to explode or anything like that. And it's able to get disposed of if you need to really quickly. Sorry, I was going somewhere with that. Basically, it can be installed, removed, used as quickly and as easily as possible, and that we can help beekeepers, as many beekeepers as possible, as quickly as possible. And I think when we were talking the other day, Sarah, it was kind of like our technology is kind of the introductory technology to yours, that it's kind of like our aim is to try and convince beekeepers to try out technology. It's probably the easiest technology to adopt into your operation, to get a bit of a taste for how you like this sensor stuff. And that eventually the really enthusiastic, the really maverick beekeepers might move part of their operation over to the really high-tech solution like BeeWise, the really, robotic beehives and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like ApisProtect is the gateway product.
Yeah, exactly.
In our conversation, one of the other things I was really struck by is when we talked about your key stakeholders, your customers who you serve, each of you unequivocally said, the bee is really our number one stakeholder, or these colonies, right? You're both really driven by that mission. And when we think about the adoption of technology, however, obviously there is a human element here. And I think you just described that really well in terms of having something that can be adopted and, tested, maybe even in a smaller scale and in a modular way, right? And then sort of leading the way to something that's even more highly automated or technology enabled. In terms of where you each sit in the market today and the land, maybe if you haven't done so already, sort of educating the audience here on what the commercial beekeeping landscape looks like. And is there a segment, for instance, Fiona, that your particular solution is really satisfies right within a particular segment? And Saar, whether there's actually in your case, a different sort of sub-segment within that commercial bee population or commercial beekeeper population, right, that you serve. I'm just curious what that looks like.
Yeah, so I think for us, I mean, the technology makes sense for almost every size of beekeeper. So in the US, we focus primarily on commercially scaled beekeepers. We do have a hobbyist solution that's available here in Europe and Ireland and the UK to start with. But so we work with beekeepers from, one hive up to thousands of beehives. But where we found a particular kind of, I guess, particularly attractive segment for us, or particularly where we are particularly attractive to beekeepers, is kind of in the middle commercial size range, where you're talking about 2,000 to about 5,000 beehives. And those are the guys where they're at that point where, often they're kind of family farms, family beekeepers, and they're at the point where they're stretched to manage the number of beehives that they've got in their operation, but bringing on there's a huge demand for more of their beehives. They know if they could keep twice as many beehives, they've got, there's almond growers looking to rent them. There's honey buyers looking to produce their honey, or, whatever combination of products they have, but they're completely stretched. They can't physically manage those hives without their losses spiraling out of control. So those are the guys who are particularly interested in adopting technology to help, can I manage 10, 20, 30% more beehives with the same resources? And that's where technology, I think, is really key.
Yeah,
I agree with Fiona. In essence, personally, I don't think that beekeepers are any different than any other profession in the market. There's a curve of early adopters and late adopters, and you find the same curve with beekeepers and growers. And so I don't think that the beekeeping industry is slower to adopt technology. It has to be a technology that actually works for them and creates real value. And then you'll see the same adoption curves, or at least that's what we're experiencing. You see similar adoption curves to any other industry with any other product. It's not a consumer product; it's a business product. We kind of focus a little bit higher on the size and the scale of the beekeepers. We try and focus on the larger operations, 10,000 hives and above, 10,000 colonies and above, because for the commercial guys, they have a lot of very unique challenges that relate to labor. And so I really didn't talk much about it, but in our product, if you can see the device behind me, there's actually a robot inside that carries out the beekeeping techniques for, instead of the beekeeper can control that robot remotely and say, okay, harvest my honey or treat mites remotely anytime during the year, any day, wherever they are in the world. The beekeeper can be in Hawaii on vacation and can still see and look inside their hives with video cameras and see the images. And so the idea here is that if you create real value, you'll see a pretty good adoption curve. But it is an extreme solution. Like I said, you have to kind of commit to it and you have to really get into the notion of changing your operation. And so without it being beekeeper or not, people are afraid of that kind of change. So I do think that Fiona's, and again, there's a lot of solutions like Fiona's in the market, but I think theirs stand out from what I've learned and seen, both in terms of their expertise. I mean, Fiona knows a lot about beekeeping and engineering. That intersection is an important one. And so I do see these systems not being mutually exclusive, but different adoption curves of different operations adopt different technologies, and the market is so big and there's so few technologies and the bees are suffering that there's enough beekeepers out there to really try out all these technologies and benefit a lot from both and from other technology too.
For sure.
That's great. I think that's really helpful. I mean, for folks who may not be as familiar with this industry, just kind of understanding that scale and size of commercial beekeeping from 1,000 hives to 10,000 plus, right? That's incredibly helpful. And when we think about, what is it, 71% of all fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts globally rely on this pollination by these bees. I mean, this is an incredible, these are incredible technology solutions to really address some really key fundamental underpinnings of our food system, right? In terms of when you think about these dependencies. So, but it's really helpful to think, I mean, to your point, it's a large market, technology is needed, and there's plenty of room to play, right, for a variety of different technologies, including others that might be listening today who have some other ideas, right? Because that's always the idea, to foster more of that innovation and collaboration.
And just to add to that, sorry, we don't have much choice. I mean, the demand is growing for the bees products, right? For pollination, for honey, all around the globe. More and more people consume more healthy food, right? On one hand, the underlying technology, on the other hand, we have the losses are actually increasing year over year.
Yeah.
So you see, the supply is going down, and that gap between demand and supply. Look, when I say we don't have a choice, I mean the growers, the beekeepers, all humans on this planet, we consume the bees product. We don't have much choice. 3 times a day on our plate, you can see food that, days, weeks, months before that, a bee pollinated. And so, put aside adoption curves, at the end of the day, the existing underlying technology of not using anything, just a wooden white box, whether it's a retrofit or a whole new solution like ours, we don't have a choice to not use them. We will have to at some point adopt something to kind of get up and close that gap between supply and demand.
Well, so Saar, Fiona, you are both entrepreneurs and therefore by default also visionaries, because you imagine a future, right, that doesn't exist today. And so as we wrap up, I would love for you to share a few concluding thoughts with those that are tuning in today about sort of your 5-year vision for your businesses, for these bee populations and beekeepers and our food system at large.
Great. I mean, I guess, yeah, sure. So the next 5 years for us, I think, for ApisProtect, obviously it's all about scaling. Both the west and the east side of the Atlantic. So I'd love to see our technology in hives throughout the commercial industry in the US and throughout the hobbyist beekeepers in Europe. And really where I think, for the beekeeping industry and for the beekeepers, and most importantly for the bees, I'd love to see in 5 years' time, if we could have taken significant steps towards making more bee pollination available where it's needed. I mean, we're seeing, the shortfall in the availability of bees in Europe and the US is only going to become a bigger problem over the next couple of years. And it'll be great to see the stocks increasing and the losses reducing. You know, they really have to, like Saar said, it's really not optional. There's going to be a major problem, at least then, or if not a few years later, if we don't. Yeah.
And to kind of, you know, piggyback on what Fiona said, you know, for us, it's really spending a lot of time and energy on creating the awareness that there are solutions out there, all types of solutions, a wide variety of solutions that one can adopt to try and move, you know, up the paradigm of less losses, like Fiona said, you know, better productivity, better labor usage, kind of how do we spend less time, you know, just picking up boxes with our hands and using our minds to actually, you know, carry out our expertise. And so that's where we're focused, really creating that awareness, increasing that awareness, and making sure the word is spread out. And this is why I think this is a great platform. And I appreciate the opportunity to actually spread the word of, you know, whether it's BeeWise or not, you know, we have to save the bees for the benefit of everybody. We have to use technology because the word is becoming more technological, and these technologies are available. They're off the shelf. And the third thing is, you know, it's not only a business decision, you know, it has ripple effects through the market to our consumers, to our customers, the end consumers who are consuming the product. So this is what we'll be focused on the next 5 years. And by doing that, hopefully increase more adoption in the market. We're exclusively focused on the US right now. We're a small company, but hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll expand to, you know, more markets outside of the North American market.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for your time and for sharing your stories with us, and, you know, the journey of building these incredible technologies to enable such an important part of the food system.
Great. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Thanks, Dennis and Denise.
Thank you all. Thanks, Fiona. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.